Hannah Moore had grown used to being second place. For 3 long years, she accepted the money that Ethan Carter offered $10,000 every month, not because she lacked the brains or the will to win, but because he wanted his childhood sweetheart, Olivia Cruz, to hold the top spot in their class rankings. Olivia's pride could not handle the humiliation of being anything less than first, and Ethan's spoiled heir of one of the wealthiest families in the state decided he could buy Hannah's silence and her brilliance. It wasn't about whether Hannah placed first or second. Her abilities were undeniable. But for Ethan and Olivia, appearances mattered more than truth, and for Hannah, money meant survival. She had taken the money, endured the whispers, and for years carried the weight of being called the girl who was never quite good enough, even though everyone knew she could have been. Before college entrance exams, Ethan came again this time with $1 million offer. "Don't take the exam," he said. "Olivia wants to be the city's valedictorian." He added, almost with a mock sympathy, that she had sacrificed enough for years, and he would help her study for another round. If she simply stepped aside, Hannah smiled and nodded, but her heart had already chosen another path. She seized the chance to apply through a special program her performance in competitions, earning her direct admission into the nation's top universities. She took the money and the education, refusing to surrender either. For her, every dollar mattered, but so did every chance to prove herself. Her homeroom teacher recommended her for the preliminary round of the National Physics Olympiad. When Hannah carried the registration form back into class, the boys were already laughing about her. $10,000 a month. One of them joked Ethan Carter really paid, that Ethan leaned back in his chair, legs up on the desk, wearing that air of careless arrogance that came so easily to him. "I did it for Olivia," he said. "She cried her heart out the last time she couldn't be first. I hate to see girls cry. $10,000 to buy a smile from my goddess." Worth it. His friends' sons of other businessmen and lawyers fawned over him, their laughter filling the classroom like cheap fireworks. They admired his wealth, his boldness, even his cruelty. One of them teased that Hannah was practically chasing after him. Wasn't he worried she might get hurt? Ethan's smirk widened. "That poor girl," he sneered. "Her sister sells street food outside the school just to pay her tuition. $10,000 is pocket money to me, but it feeds her family for a year. She should be thanking me." The room roared with laughter, again cruel and merciless. Hannah pushed the door open. The sound died instantly. Ethan yanked his feet off the desk and rubbed his nose suddenly awkward. She walked straight to him and placed a stack of completed assignments on his desk. "Homework for the week," she said. "Done." He squinted his eyes into a smile, pretending it was affection. "You like coming to me that much?" My little loyal puppy Hannah held out her hand without expression. $500! He froze for a second before remembering their arrangement. She solved his work. He paid her $500 each time. Everyone wanted money, even him. Scowling, he pulled out 5 bills, but as she reached for them, his smirk returned. He slapped the wad against her chest, letting the bills scatter to the floor. "Hannah Moore," he whispered, "this is all your life will ever amount to." She bent down and picked up each note carefully. Laughter rose again, sharp and cutting, echoing around her. "Look at her," they sneered, actually picking it up. "All that for $500. Doesn't she feel shame? They did not know what shame felt like. They had never had to bow their heads to angry customers, After spilling oil across the floor, never carried packages up 16 flights of stairs in the heat, only to have the delivery refused, never worked hour after hour for $8 that barely covered a meal. Poverty was its own disease, incurable and merciless, and Hannah carried it in her bones. She had been born the third daughter to parents who had desperately wanted a son. By the time she turned 2, another girl was born, and the disappointment deepened. They had even chosen the name Hannah for the boy they hoped for, only to hand it to her. At 8, the long-awaited son finally arrived, and from that day, everything in the house belonged to him. She and her younger sister were pulled out of school, told education was wasted on girls. It was her older sisters who protested, threatening to stop sending money home unless the girls continued studying. It was then Hannah realized the power of money, how it could bend even her parents' rigid will, how it could transform valleys into level ground. So she did everything she could for money. Waitress shifts, hauling crates, anything that paid. $8 an hour was still money, and she took it. But it was never enough to break free. Until one night she stumbled on a forum post written under the username Olivia's Prayer. "My girl didn't win first place," the post said. "She's crying her eyes out. What should I do to make her smile again?" Hannah stared at the screen, her chest tight, and then typed a reply. "Use money. If 10,000 isn't enough, pay more. The poor have short dreams." She knew deep inside that the person behind that post was Ethan Carter himself, who would do anything to buy Olivia's happiness. The following Monday, at the start of a new semester, Ethan came to her with the same blunt demand. $10,000 a month, don't be first. Hannah wasn't surprised. She had already known from the very first moment who was behind that username. And yet beneath all the deals and the insults, a quiet fire burned inside her. She was tired of being measured by the weight of cash thrown at her feet. She wanted more than survival, more than second place, bought and sold like a commodity. Her silence, her obedience, her bargains were not weakness. They were patience. They were the gathering of strength for the moment when the whole world would have to see her for who she truly was. Ethan Carter never hid his contempt for my poverty, but even he could not dismiss the sharpness of my mind. Not long after the new semester began, he tossed a wad of cash on my desk, his smirk dripping with arrogance, his eyes bored and half amused. $500 for one set of homework, he said. I laughed bitterly inside. That money came faster than carrying trays at the diner, so why should I refuse to secure this patron? I went further, pretending to care about his interests, memorizing his likes and dislikes, running errands that spared him from lifting a finger. Everyone else mocked me, calling me his obedient pet, his loyal mutt, but I alone knew how generous he could be when it pleased him. That month, however, I refused. First place was my dream, and I had already sacrificed too much. My meaning was clear: if he wanted me to surrender, again he would have to pay more. Ethan scoffed, shaking his head, as though my words were the most ridiculous thing he had ever heard. "Poor people shouldn't waste their breath talking about dreams," he muttered. "Fill your stomach first, then you can start dreaming." I bit my lip, lowered my head, let my eyes glisten as if I were on the verge of tears. He grew impatient, rolling his eyes. "Fine then. 100,000 a month. Is that enough?" I had barely opened my mouth to answer when a sudden splash of icy water drenched me head to toe. I gasped as the cold soaked into my skin. It was Olivia Cruz holding the cup, her eyes shimmering with tears that made her look heartbreakingly fragile. The glass slipped from her hand, shattered on the floor, a shard slicing open my arm. Blood mingled with water dripping down onto the tiles. Students passing by stopped in their tracks, curiosity flashing in their eyes. Olivia pointed a trembling finger at me, her voice sweet with false indignation. "Your grades may be high, but what about your character? What do you have to make up for that? Instead of studying honestly, you stoop to such low tricks. Do you really think you can stay on top forever?" Her words were carefully sharpened, accusing me of using dirty methods to secure my rank. I stared at her coldly. Why not? From that moment forward, I made sure that every exam result placed me just a step above her. Not so far that she would give up, but far enough that she would never catch me. If she gained points, I gained more. If she clawed her way closer, I widened the gap again, just enough to let her believe victory was within reach. She became the desperate horse chasing the carrot that dangled forever out of reach. After one more crushing defeat in a citywide mock exam, Olivia broke down sobbing and fled the classroom. Ethan rushed after her, furious on her behalf, blocking my path as though I were the villain. $100,000 every month, he demanded. Stop taking first place. I surrendered my seat at the top of the rankings, settling into second, while Olivia basked in her endless role as runner-up. My homeroom teacher summoned me to her office, concern etched into her face. She urged me to focus, reminding me that my scores would determine my qualification for the National Olympiad. If I slipped too far, I could lose my chance entirely. After a long pause, I told her the truth. When she heard it, her lips parted in shock, but no words came. "You can't fight the Carters," she whispered, finally her voice trembling. "Neither can I. I insisted that there was nothing wrong with standing in second if it was by my own ability." She only sighed, handing me another registration form. "The city was hosting a math competition," she said, "and I should join." She sipped her tea, spat out the leaves, and reminded me that the second round of the state Olympiad was only days away. "She believed in me," she said softly. She always had. The city competition wasn't particularly prestigious, just a collaboration between a few schools, but I treated it as training for the nationals. What I did not expect was that Olivia would be there too. In class, Ethan's friends clustered around her, heaping on their endless flattery. "Wow, Olivia," they gushed, "you're really moving up to the city level. You're in a whole different league from the rest of us." They chattered about prodigies from other schools who had also signed up, marveling at the competition. Someone asked if the teacher had invited her personally. Olivia blushed, lowering her lashes. "Oh, it's nothing," she said coyly. "Just for the school's honor. How could I refuse?" Her tongue peeked out playfully. A picture of bashful charm. She didn't deny, it didn't clarify, letting their admiration swell unchecked. The class erupted in admiration. With her strength, surely first place was hers, they cried. Olivia batted one of her admirers on the head with her book, pouting that she hated being called their sister-in-law. "Stop it already," she whined, pretending to be annoyed. I stood in the doorway, waiting for the noise to crest before stepping inside. Slowly, I slid into my seat, letting the edge of my own registration form peek out of my bag. One sharp-eyed classmate caught sight of it and blurted out, "Hannah, you're entering the city competition too." Silence fell like a stone. Then came the burst of laughter, loud and cruel. "She's only been here a few months," someone jeered. "Just because she snagged a couple of top scores, she thinks she's invincible. She's already fallen to second place, and she still dreams of competing." Exactly, another voice chimed in, "As long as Olivia's here." Hannah will always be number 2. Yet in that chorus of mockery, a few softer voices rose, hesitant, almost defensive. Not everyone was so sure. They laughed as if they themselves were capable of entering the competition, as if their sneers carried weight. Victory and defeat had not yet been decided, yet they already proclaimed judgment. I let their voices fade into the background. When it came to money, I was poor beyond question, but when it came to study, none of them could touch me. My eyes met Olivia Cruz's across the classroom, and her lips pressed together, her face paling. She knew as well as I did that I could send her crashing back into second place whenever I chose. Ethan Carter stepped in front of me that afternoon, his tone not a request but an order. "Withdraw from the city competition." He leaned against the wall, a lollipop stuck in the corner of his mouth, his expression heavy with disdain. "I hate your holier-than-thou attitude," he muttered. "You act like being smart makes you better than everyone else. Grades are all you have to boast about." I smiled coldly. "You hate me, yet you still come to me when you need something." His jaw clenched as he crunched down on the candy. 100,000, he snapped. "Drop out." My phone buzzed, the bank notification chiming with the deposit. I glanced at my account. A year of errands for Ethan assignments, written every odd job he demanded, had piled into over 100,000 already. Without hesitation, I pulled out the registration slip, waved it in front of his face, and tucked it back into my bag. "Don't worry," I said lightly. "I won't block your goddess from winning first place." Then I walked away, leaving him rooted in silence. Instead of wasting time on the city contest, I focused on the provincial Olympiad. When the results came out, the timing was uncanny. It was the very day Olivia received her city competition score. The classroom buzzed with excitement. "Olivia, word is, you placed 12th in the city," someone announced. "Amazing." She smiled shyly, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "Stop praising me. You'll embarrass me," she murmured. 12th isn't even that high. The modesty only made them gush louder. 12th out of the best in the city is incredible, they insisted. With that kind of talent, she could surely aim higher. I had once thought that my absence would guarantee her victory, but clearly, even with me gone, she hadn't touched the crown. When I entered the room, a strange hush fell over them. Someone finally asked, "Didn't Hannah sign up too?" "How many points did she get?" Another chimed in, "Wait, she didn't even take the test right. Wasn't she always bragging? Now she doesn't dare show up." The taunts grew harsher. "She's scared, that's why." City contests aren't like school exams. You can't bluff your way to first there. Some people only shine in shallow waters, but when the sea gets deep, they drown. Laughter rippled through the room. Strangely, Ethan Carter, who normally never missed a chance to jab at me, said nothing. His silence was louder than their jeers. "Hannah!" "We get it," one of his friends said with a mocking smile. "You're just afraid Olivia will finally beat you. You don't have to hide." Olivia herself stayed tucked behind her admirers, smiling faintly but never speaking, letting their assumptions crown her innocent. I reached into my bag, pulled out the certificate for first place in the provincial Olympiad, and slid it back inside. My lips curled into a faint smile. "I understand you too," I said softly. "Einstein was born before you by decades, surely to give fools like you a head start." The room froze, faces flushed red. I clapped my hands once, letting the sound echo, and continued. "After you came into this world, even Li Bai stopped writing poetry. Perhaps it was because kings do not meet kings, or because genius has no rival. And why are there only 3 cobblers in the old proverb? Because the rest of them are sitting right here." The silence that followed was suffocating until a quiet laugh broke it apart. From the corner of the room, Ethan Carter covered his mouth. Eyes crinkled with amusement. Olivia's lips trembled, her face drained of color. With a sharp cry, she slammed her desk and stormed out, her tears chasing her down the hallway. When the day ended and the classroom emptied, Ethan was waiting. One foot propped on a desk, he blocked my way. "Why do you keep tormenting her like that?" he asked, his voice softer than I had ever heard it. It was not the sharp demand he usually wielded, but something quieter, almost uncertain. I brushed his leg aside and stepped past him. "I do what I'm paid for. If you want me to leave her alone, that's simple. Pay me." For once, he didn't snap back. He stood silent, his jaw tight. A long moment passed before he spoke again. "You keep targeting Olivia because you like me, don't you? You do my assignments, run my errands, all just an excuse. Deep down, you're only doing it to get close to me." His voice faltered as he reached for his phone. The familiar chime of a bank transfer rang again. I met his eyes, steady and cold. "I'm not interested in your delusions, Ethan. Not your money, not your games, and certainly not you. Don't waste your time on me anymore," I told him, my voice calm, my smile faint like a servant who had finally grasped the bitter philosophy of life. "Don't worry, from now on, whenever I see you, I'll keep my distance. Even if she tramples me underfoot, I'll still compliment her for standing so tall." Everyone already knew Ethan Carter had transferred from an elite international academy into our public school only because of Olivia Cruz. I hadn't believed it at first, but now I did. Fate has its strange ways of twisting, and though I tried to avoid trouble, trouble had a way of seeking me out. Cold water crashed down over my head one afternoon, soaking my hair, my uniform clinging to my skin. A group of girls blocked me in front of the restroom. The leader, broad-shouldered and heavy-handed, smacked the back of my skull. Pain shot down my spine as my forehead struck the icy tile. Water seeped through my sweater, stabbing at my skin like needles. "Think you can seduce Ethan Carter?" she sneered. "Look at yourself." Her spit hit the collar of my uniform, sour and disgusting. I raised my eyes, reminding them softly that the hallway had cameras. They only laughed, bold and shameless. One wiry girl, with arms like iron, forced my head down into the sink water, gushing over my face. "You only get special treatment because of your grades," she spat. "Out in the real world, no one would care. Everyone knows Ethan and Olivia are meant to be. You're just the extra, the intruder pretending to be pure while chasing someone else's man." Their laughter rang out cruel, echoing off the walls. November air made the water colder, so cold it felt like it pierced bone. Someone yanked my head back up, while others rolled their sleeves ready to strike again. I gasped for air, my chest heaving, and through the crush of bodies, I caught sight of a familiar silhouette at the doorway. A wave of rage surged through me so sharp it steadied me. I wanted revenge. So I spoke each word slow and deliberate. So, what I've always believed, that where money goes, love follows. Ethan Carter gave me $1 million, and Olivia never once turned away his money. The words hit harder than their blows. My head was shoved back under the freezing water, but not before I saw the shock flare in Olivia's eyes. A teacher happened upon us minutes later, finding me unconscious. There were only 2 days left until the National Olympiad finals. I fell ill with a fever that left me shaking. Through the written exam and the practical, I drifted as if on clouds, unable to focus my mind blank. When I staggered out of the room afterward, my head felt hollow. My homeroom teacher could only pat my shoulder and whisper that it was all right, there was still college entrance to aim for. The school punished the girls who had attacked me, but at first they shrugged it off. A slap on the wrist, they thought. A warning, a note in their record, nothing more. They were close to graduation. Who would really expel them? But the school did. Expulsion notices landed on their desks like hammers. Parents flooded the office day after day, begging, weeping, kneeling for another chance. The girls themselves trembled, crying, until their eyes were swollen, trailing after me, with petitions of apology, begging me to sign forgiveness letters. But none of it mattered. They had thought they were only bullying an ordinary girl. They hadn't realized that I was the student the school had invested in, the one teachers pinned their hopes on. They had prepared an entire campaign to celebrate me. If I won at the national level, now their fists and their cruelty had ruined everything. How could the school forgive? How could I? No one ever dared to mention Olivia's role. Money had surely been spent, hands shaken behind the scenes. Yet even so, she was not free from consequence. Whispers followed her pressure mounted, and her grades began to sink. The next time I saw her, her face was pale, faint red marks blooming across her cheek. She had been struck by her parents. Only then did I understand why she clung so desperately to first place. It was survival for her, too, in her own gilded cage. But pity did not slow me. I pressed forward, racing ahead with every step, first in the grade, first in the city, higher and higher, leaving her behind where she could never catch me. The weight crushed her. Within months, she was snapping at classmates' brittle and short-tempered arguments, erupting even with Ethan himself. "Why aren't you chasing Hannah anymore?" she shouted. "If she loves money so much, just keep paying her. Don't tell me you've fallen for her." Ethan's eyes turned cold, his silence sharper than any insult. Olivia clapped her hands over her face, sobbing. "I'm sorry," she whispered, "but if I don't stay first, my parents will beat me." His shoulders slumped, and despite everything, he still pulled her into his arms. The next day, my phone buzzed. A transfer of $200,000. Only Ethan Carter could treat such a sum as if it were pocket change, never grasping that it equaled a year's living for a normal family. For him, it was merely half a month's allowance. Ethan Carter lowered his head, his tone sharp with irritation. "I told you already, stop making things harder for her. She doesn't have it easy. She's naive, she's simple. Not like you, with your eyes full of nothing but money." Before his words had even faded, I hurled a glass of water into his face. Olivia Cruz had once drenched me in front of everyone. This was just the debt returning to its owner. Droplets rolled down his handsome face, his expression frozen in disbelief before rage broke through. "Are you out of your mind?" he roared. "I give you money, and you dare to throw water at me." I shook the score sheet in my hand, my voice calm. That money was to buy first place for Olivia. There was never any clause that forbade me from drenching you. His jaw tightened, his teeth grinding together. "Hannah Moore, you've got nerve." Of course I did, because not long after my homeroom teacher delivered the news, I had won first place at the National Olympiad. For a moment, I thought I was dreaming. My teacher was so excited, she fumbled her words, repeating over and over that my foundation was solid, that my illness had already begun to fade the day of the contest, that my performance had been as steady as ever. It was only my own doubts that had tricked me into despair. The admission files had already been sent ahead. I thought the joy would burst from me, but instead the feeling came quiet, subdued. After class, I still returned to the sidewalk stand where my sister grilled tortillas over a battered iron pan. I didn't dare tell her that my account held more than $200,000. If she knew I had been bullied so viciously at school, she would have thrown me onto the grill alongside the food in her fury. That evening, Olivia Cruz looped her arm through Ethan's and strolled past our little stall. "Hannah, are you working here selling tortillas?" she asked with a hand over her mouth, feigning wide-eyed astonishment. My sister hurried to wipe her hands on her apron, smiling warmly. "A classmate of Hannah's." "Sit down." "Sit down." Olivia glanced at the greasy plastic chair and curled her lip. "This chair is filthy," she sniffed. "My coat is new winter collection, very expensive." My sister fumbled with the apron, again apologizing. "I'll pack some to go for you then. Thank you for looking out for Hannah. Tonight it's on me." Olivia pursed her lips, her tone icy. "Make sure it's clean. My stomach is sensitive." My sister only nodded quickly and set to work. Olivia leaned closer to me, her words low, scolding. "How much money has Ethan given you already? And still your sister works herself ragged here. Hannah, don't forget where you came from. You're too selfish." I lifted 2 boxes from the counter, answering evenly. "Ethan gave me money for you. Yet even so, you couldn't win first place. Olivia, if you want to be taken seriously, you should show some ambition. You're useless." Her face flamed red. She shot a glance up at Ethan, searching for rescue, but he bit his lip, struggling not to laugh. I handed them the packaged food. Olivia's tone turned honeyed. "Sister, maybe one day I'll bring the whole class to support your stall." My sister smiled nervously. "Oh, that would be too much." Olivia beamed, dazzling, every inch the angel. "Don't worry," she said sweetly. "We'll take good care of Hannah." She pressed the words "good care" with deliberate emphasis. The memory of cold water crashing over my head burned through me as if I were drowning again. My fists tightened at my sides, the muscles in my arms drawn taut. Olivia's lips curved into a delicate flower of cruelty. "See," she whispered one sentence from me, "and your sister showers me with thanks. That's poverty." Rumors spread that Olivia had been beaten by her parents again. When I saw her, her face was hollow, fresh red handprints blazing across her cheek. No wonder she clung to first place as if her life depended on it. But pity would not stop me. I surged ahead, taking first in the grade, first in the city, pushing forward with every exam. Olivia fell further and further behind, unable to catch me no matter how hard she tried. The pressure cracked her. Within months, she grew irritable, snapping at anyone, even Ethan. "Why don't you chase Hannah anymore?" she shouted during one argument. "If she wants money, just keep giving it to her. Don't tell me you actually like her." Ethan's eyes turned icy silence, cutting deeper than words. Olivia realized too late, burying her face in her hands, sobbing. "I'm sorry, but if I don't win, my parents will kill me." Ethan sighed heavily, still pulling her against his chest. The next day, I received another transfer. 200,000. For Ethan Carter, it was nothing less than half a month's allowance. For an ordinary family, it was survival for a year. He never understood that weight. To him, it was only currency. To me, it was leverage. When he cornered me later, I met his eyes without flinching. "In a few days, we'll have the city trial exams. I will take first. If you don't want Olivia beaten again, give me 200,000 and every set of review notes you have. We're about to graduate. If I don't take this chance to earn, then when?" He stared at me, scanning from head to toe. "Are you extorting me now?" I let out a soft laugh. "Haven't you always looked down on the poor? If you can't even spare that much, then what right do you have to speak to me at all?" In the past, Ethan would have exploded at such words, fury searing in his eyes. But this time, he only fell silent, an unusual stillness pressing down. Finally, he asked low and almost thoughtful, "So money is all it takes to make you happy?" The answer slipped from my mouth like air. Who isn't happy with money? "Don't try to play with feelings, Ethan. They're worthless here. 200,000, not a cent less." He folded his arms, arrogance twisting across his features once more. So be it, I thought. Let him wait. I waited too, savoring the anticipation of the transfer notification, imagining the money dropping into my account. But as the trial exams drew near, there was no message from Ethan Carter. Perhaps he assumed greed would make me crawl back to him. He should have known better. I never gave him the satisfaction. When the results were posted, my name was at the top. 662 points, first in the entire city. Olivia Cruz stood frozen before the board, her face drained of color, her body trembling. She knew exactly what awaited her at home. My desk partner whispered her family story, how her parents had once been high-powered business figures, strict beyond reason. In their house, only perfection was tolerated. First in every subject, champion in every contest. But mountains are endless. There is always a higher peak. No one can hold first forever. The class sighed with sympathy, whispering pity for her fate. Pity, however, did not erase the fact that she had tormented me. Her eyes cut toward me sharp as blades. "Hannah, you must be gloating. But mark my words, you'll regret this." Her threat slid past me like smoke. Mediocrity has always considered itself a crime. One morning, I stepped into the classroom and felt the air twist too quiet, too strange. Students glanced at me, then quickly looked away, pretending to focus on their work, but their eyes flickered back sly and heavy. Before I could make sense of it, my hair was yanked from behind my body, dragged out into the hall. I turned stunned into the weathered face of my mother. Then came the slap. My cheek burned numb with shock. "You go to school only to become some man's mistress," she spat. The word mistress clung to me like filth. Laughter and whispers pierced from behind classroom doors, eyes stabbing into my back like knives. "Whose man is it?" she barked. How much did he give you? $1 million, and you forget your family, forget your parents, your little brother. His tuition alone is $50,000 a year. Do you even know what burden we carry? Her rough hands clawed into my pockets, hunting for cash. Where's the money? Hand it over. If you don't give it to me today, I'll make the teacher expel you. My father stood stiff beside her, his disappointment heavier than her blows. You've shamed me, Hannah. That money isn't safe with you. Give it to us. When you marry, we'll return $80,000 as dowry. In front of everyone, they turned me inside out, treating me like a possession to be emptied, not a daughter. Words, vile and cutting, swirled around me, but I didn't bother to tell them apart. My eyes slid past the crowd, locking on the far corner of the hall, where Ethan Carter stood, his expression stunned, at a loss for words. Relief came only when my homeroom teacher arrived with security prying my parents away, scolding the gawking students to disperse. What are you staring at? Back to studying. The second trial is coming soon. She placed a gentle hand on my shoulder, guiding me to her office. Behind me, the whispers swelled again. Did you hear? Maybe it's true. Maybe nothing will happen. Inside the office, my teacher inhaled deeply, her gaze heavy with worry. What I'm about to tell you, you need to prepare yourself. My heart sank. Disciplinary action. I thought, expulsion perhaps. The scandal was too loud to ignore. But then her lips spread into a radiant smile. Your direct admission application has been approved. Congratulations, Hannah. You've been accepted to Tsinghua, to Peking University. Joy rushed through me so sharp it erased the sting on my cheek. I begged her to keep the news quiet, at least for now. She nodded. When I stepped out of the office, my head was spinning, but my feet felt light as air. I hummed under my breath, my skin still hot from the slap, but happiness drowned it out. Around the corner, voices cut through the hall. Ethan's voice raw with anger. I've given you everything. What more do you want? Olivia's reply was saccharine edged with venom. She provoked me on purpose. Can't you see? She has an agenda. His answer came sharp, unhesitating. So what? That's her ability. The silence that followed pressed against me so thick my footsteps faltered. I stopped listening. Olivia's voice broke, rising into a wail. You like her, don't you? Ethan said nothing, and I didn't care to hear whatever came next. The sound of Olivia's sobs followed me down the hall, fading like an old song. No wonder I thought bitterly. He said the money was a gift, but had he ever truly spent a dime on me? Ethan Carter's glare burned with accusation. How did you become so materialistic? Isn't your top ranking bought with my money? Once a crack appears, there's no mending it. I turned away without a word. From that day, Ethan and Olivia Cruz drifted into open warfare, yet I knew he still cared for her. Before the second trial exams, another familiar transfer appeared in my account, $200,000. When I totaled it all, I realized I had saved nearly $3 million over 3 years. To Ethan, it was pocket change. To me, it was the beginning of a new life. He sought me out again the day before the college entrance exam. His face was gaunt, his eyes shadowed. He looked as if he had been carrying a weight too heavy for too long. Withdraw, Hannah, he said hoarsely. His words trembled, but his meaning was clear. I knew this day would come. 1 million. Don't take the exam. Let Olivia have first place in the city. He drew in a shuddering breath. Her parents are relentless. 3 years of top scores have only sharpened their expectations. She's suffocating Hannah. To her, those results mean everything. Each word was heavy with pity, with guilt, with sorrow. And me, I asked, do my 3 years of blood and sweat mean nothing? He looked away. You're not like her. You're smarter. If you took another year, you'd still pass. But if she falls, it will destroy her. His voice softened to almost a whisper. You've suffered enough these years. Next year, I'll take the exam with you. I laughed sharp and bitter. Fine then, fool. Sit for the exam alone. As for me, I'll take the money and finally live for myself. The morning of the exam, I was ambushed at my eldest sister's home. My parents burst in, locked the door, and threw me inside. You think you can escape us by staying away, you wretch? My mother's eyes were wild. College entrance exam. A girl like you. Even if you pass, it's only to become some man's mistress. You've hoarded money for years, not giving a cent to this family. Raising you has been nothing but a waste. My sister wept, begging them to let me go. I'll give you the money. Just open the door. I cried, pounding the wood until my hands stung. But my mother shrieked back. The money is ours by right. We sent you out to earn for us. My father's voice cut through cold. I'll stay here all day. Once the exam is over, we'll settle the debt of that $1,000,000. Then he muttered to my mother, smug. Olivia's family is generous. Just for this, they wired $5,000,000 without blinking. Ice slid down my spine. So that was my worth, $5,000,000. That was all it took for them to sell their daughter's future. My second sister arrived then fierce and hot-tempered from years on construction sites. Without hesitation, she threw herself into the fray, fists flying. My parents collapsed to the floor, crying out like dying serpents. Oh heavens, our own daughter strikes us. Where is the law? The order. They clutched at her legs, trapping her, turning her strength into stalemate. While they screamed and cursed, I tied bedsheets and coats together, fastening them to the bed frame. I shoved open the window and tossed the rope down. For once, I was grateful for their neglect. They had never fed me well enough to grow strong, and now my frailty was my salvation. I was light as air, and I slipped free. Like a butterfly, I flew from that cage. I carried only a single backpack inside it, my ID, my bank card, my admission notices from Tsinghua and Peking University, and a plane ticket to the capital. I bought a new phone and wired $1,000,000 each to my eldest and second sisters. No more. If my parents found out, they would torment them. Before boarding, I sent one last message. Take care of each other. Stay healthy. The phone buzzed one last time. Ethan Carter's name flashed on the screen. I didn't open it. I blocked him forever. The mountains stretch long and the rivers run deep. From this moment, there will be no trace of me in his world. On the day the admission letters were distributed, the school held a grand ceremony. Reporters crowded the auditorium, cameras flashing. My name on the roll was no longer just a student, but a symbol. Hannah Moore, the girl who had been dragged down, mocked, beaten, abandoned, had risen higher than they ever imagined. This year's graduating class had brought the school more glory than anyone expected, and the administration seized the moment for publicity. Flashbulbs popped, cameras bathed every smiling face in white light, freezing youth in frames that would circulate through magazines and local news. Just as the ceremony reached its height, Olivia Cruz swept into the classroom, surrounded by her friends. The reporters turned instantly, rushing toward her with microphones extended. "How many points did you score?" Olivia lowered her lashes modestly, her smile demure. "Not much, really," she murmured. 654. I didn't do very well this time." Gasps rippled through the crowd. "That's not doing well," one parent exclaimed. "That's outstanding. Real top student material." The cameras whirred faster, capturing every angle of her glowing face. Her mother swelled with pride, standing taller, chest thrust forward, her expression gleaming with triumph. Olivia's hands trembled from excitement as the photographer circled. "I'm not actually that good," she continued, her voice soft as silk. "If someone hadn't dropped out of the exam, I probably wouldn't have placed first." The words were light, but they fell like a bomb. The classroom buzzed. Dropped out? Who would give up the college entrance exam? That's insane. Do these kids even understand the exam decides their whole future? If you quit, you'll be chewed up by society, spit out, and regret it forever. Others sneered. Maybe she wasn't capable, maybe she was too weak, probably failed too many times and finally gave up. Rumors rose fast. Didn't someone in this class score 600? Maybe it was her, too cowardly to face the competition. Olivia's parents exchanged smug glances, curling their lips with disdain. Her mother bent to whisper, "That kind of person will never amount to anything. Don't you dare follow her example." Compliments piled up again. "Not everyone can be as talented as your daughter. She's clearly not cut out for academics." Olivia sighed. Performing pity, her eyes lowered with feigned compassion. "We can't really blame her. Maybe if she weren't so poor, she wouldn't have to sell herself for money." She covered her mouth as though startled at her own slip. "Oh, I didn't mean that." Gasps echoed through the room. Shock rippled like an earthquake. What did she just say? In a classroom, no less. How can someone talk like that? If she were here right now, I'd slap her myself. Voices of contempt and hatred rose louder. At that moment, the door swung open. The homeroom teacher stepped inside her eyes, sweeping over Olivia, then settling on the class with crisp authority. "The matter has already been investigated by the school. You are all young adults. If you spread false information, you will bear responsibility under the law." The implication was unmistakable. Olivia was lying. The students froze. If it was false, why had her words sounded so convincing? Olivia's face turned scarlet, as though her skin were being peeled away. She bit her lip hard enough to draw blood. But she really did withdraw. Olivia whispered desperately. True or not, abandoning the exam was damning. How could it be explained? The teacher posted a notice on the blackboard, pinning it firmly in place. "Read it yourselves." Reporters surged forward, cameras snapping frantically at the sheet of paper. Parents and students craned their necks, straining to see. Silence dropped heavy across the room as eyes scanned the words. Then a roar of disbelief broke out. What? It said she was a poor student. It said she quit out of fear. How could it be this? The notice was official, stamped and signed. Hannah Moore, winner of the National Physics Olympiad, has been granted direct admission to Tsinghua University and Peking University. 2 words blazed like fire: direct admission. Olivia shoved her way forward, her eyes locked on the notice, unable to tear herself away. Her parents' faces darkened instantly. "And you said her scores were worse than yours." Her teeth chattered audibly, her whole body trembling. The eyes of her classmates burned holes in her back. No one admired liars. Even if she hadn't broken the law, her reputation was shattered. Reporters no longer cared to aim their lenses at her. Cameras swung away, focusing elsewhere as though she had ceased to exist. The classroom rang with stunned voices. Unbelievable. So she wasn't a coward after all. She was the real prodigy. To think she stayed away from the ceremony and got slandered like this. A swell of pride and vindication surged like a wave. And in the center of it all, Olivia Cruz stood with her face burning, the weight of disgrace pressing down like stone, while outside the door the sound of hurried footsteps thundered closer, promising yet another turn in a story already too sharp to bear. The classroom erupted into chaos when an elderly woman appeared at the doorway, flanked by police officers. Cameras swiveled instantly, shutters clicking as every reporter turned toward the spectacle. Whispers spread like wildfire. It was Hannah Moore's mother. Her eyes darted across the room before landing squarely on Olivia Cruz. "It was her," she cried, jabbing a finger in accusation. "She gave me money, told me to lock Hannah inside the house to keep her from sitting for the college exam." Then she turned to the officers, her voice dripping with desperation and flattery. "I'm confessing now, but this won't affect my son's schooling, will it?" The revelation hit like an earthquake. Olivia had bribed Hannah's own mother to sabotage her. The class froze, stunned, trying to comprehend. Why? What was she thinking? To go so far just for first place? Olivia's blood drained from her face, her body trembling as if the floor had given way beneath her. Why is Hannah's mother here? Her eyes darted desperately toward her parents, but their gaze was glacial, their disappointment so sharp it cut her to the bone. Reporters surged forward, cameras flashing wildly, immortalizing her disgrace. Her reputation, once pristine, collapsed in seconds. Outside the classroom walls, her name would be tarnished forever. Who would ever accept a student willing to harm others for her own gain? Olivia snapped, her voice breaking into shrieks. "She deserves it. So what if she's smart? She provoked me on purpose. She scored higher just to make me miserable. She deserves everything." The homeroom teacher shook her head with solemn disappointment. "Olivia, I know the pressure your family places on you. I know how much you crave that #1 spot. But pressure is never an excuse to harm another person." The police remained unmoved by her outburst. "We're here for another matter as well." One officer announced flatly, "A witness reported you once paid people to corner Hannah Moore in the restroom to hold her head underwater until she fell ill." Olivia's head snapped up, her face bleached white. That incident, too. Hadn't Ethan Carter covered it up? She turned, searching the crowd, and found his gaze. But it was cold, detached, entirely unfamiliar. No sympathy remained. It was as though he had never known her at all. Her knees buckled and she staggered back. In panic, she looked to her parents for salvation, but they turned away without a word. "Father," she cried, "don't." He spun on his heel, his voice dripping with contempt. "Don't call me that. You've disgraced us all." She was abandoned in the moment she needed them most. Everything was finished. Ethan had not planned to come, but there were words he needed to say. Olivia always thought he liked Hannah, but that wasn't the truth. What he admired was something else: her unbreakable spirit, the way she endured humiliation without bowing her head, the fire that refused to die, no matter how many times the world tried to smother it. She was like a wildflower pushing through cracks in stone, fragile yet stubborn, surviving against all odds. She was neither servile nor arrogant, unlike anyone he had ever known. Hannah once told him she was poor, but never beneath anyone. He had seen comments online that said the poor have short ambition, but applied to her the words rang hollow. For Hannah Moore, they were false. After days of reflection, Ethan realized there was only one phrase worthy of her: poor but not low. The poorer she was, the stronger she became. His own academic record barely mattered. His family had already arranged the path for him, elite schools' doors opened by their influence. But suddenly, he felt hollow. A life without struggle, without triumph, born of sweat and resilience, would never taste of glory. He turned down his father's plans and insisted on repeating a year. He wanted at least once to stand before Hannah Moore and offer a genuine apology. But when the day came when students gathered with their admission letters and smiles, Hannah Moore was nowhere to be seen. Ethan Carter felt a weight pressing in his chest, something sharp and suffocating, until he finally sought out the homeroom teacher to ask. Only then did he learn the truth: Hannah Moore had been granted direct admission. She was already gone on a flight to the capital. The wildflower he once knew had grown into a towering tree, stretching beyond his reach. He could only lift his head to watch her rise. When news of Olivia Cruz surfaced again, I was already representing my country at the International Physics Olympiad. My team swept the competition, every one of us bringing home gold. A friend messaged me later telling me Olivia had enrolled at a respectable university, but the scandal that clung to her name followed everywhere. A shadow she could not shake. Her classmates whispered, avoided her, left her isolated. At home, her parents pressed her harder, demanding brilliance at any cost. That relentless pressure inside and out crushed her until she slipped into depression. Call it retribution arriving right on time. By my sophomore year, the research team I had joined successfully patented our first invention. Each member received $1 million annually in royalties. Life finally began to shift upward. My eldest and second sisters brought our youngest sibling to the capital, leaving behind the old house. Before they left, they returned the $200,000 I had once sent, calling it repayment for the so-called debt of raising us. Then they cut off every tie with our parents. My eldest confided that our father and mother could no longer afford the younger brother's tuition at his expensive private school. They borrowed left and right, sinking deeper into shame. If the three of us had not escaped in time, we too would have been dragged under by creditors. Hearing this stirred nothing in me. My heart was steady. Once I graduated, I would receive permanent residency in the capital, a new life free of chains. We would never again set foot in that rotting neighborhood, never again be drained as sacrifices for the family. I pursued graduate studies, and fate circled back. That was when I saw Ethan Carter again. He had become an investor, funding the very project I was leading. It had been years. "Hannah, long time no see," he said, and for a moment I almost didn't recognize him. The reckless arrogance of the rich boy was gone, replaced by something quieter, steadier. We agreed to meet at a modest noodle shop. Over steaming bowls, conversation unraveled. He admitted the years had not been kind. "I'm not like you. My grandfather gave me chances to run the company, but I failed every time." At last, disappointed, he handed everything to my older brother. He laughed then, but the sound carried the taste of bitterness. Behind that smile, I couldn't tell if it was regret, grief, or resignation. But it was no longer my concern. Resistance always has a price. The day he rejected the path his family laid before him, the day he chose to stay for Olivia, he had already forfeited his inheritance. After a pause, he asked softly, "Hannah, do you hate me?" I finished the last sip of broth and shook my head. "You helped Olivia hurt me, yes. I hated you then, but once you also helped me. That makes us even." Work pulled me back quickly. I wiped my mouth, stood, and left. I never looked back, so I didn't see the stunned expression frozen on his face. He had probably forgotten the small things, like the time when a group of thugs tried to wreck my sister's food cart, and he stepped in to defend her. He was handsome, and for a long while I remembered him for that. Maybe he never knew there was once a time when my heart truly softened for him. But the day he flung a stack of bills onto the table, I understood. He and I were never of the same world. Sunlight spilled warm across my shoulders, chasing away the chill of months gone by. I walked slowly down the street, pausing before a small shop window. A postcard was taped to the glass, the words written in graceful script. "When you set out on the journey to Ithaca, may your road be long full of adventure and discovery." I stood there for a long moment, letting the words settle inside me like a quiet promise to myself. Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next videos.